Today, I want to talk to you about habits. Now, habits are these things that we try to add on top of who we are to change ourselves into a different person. And I want to talk to you about why I feel like this is kind of meaningless, because we're trying to change the perception of who we are, even to ourselves, through this change in habits. And we're adding things on top of who we already are, but that doesn't change the underlying person underneath. So if habits don't actually change who we are, what does change who we are? Well, I think that this comes down to the idea of what are my values? What do I actually hold dear in life? What is actually important to me? What really matters to me? And this is a hard conversation to have because everybody in the world wants to think, well, no, I am trying. No, this is important to me. This is what I'm doing with my life. And yeah, maybe it's going slow, but it's hard to have that conversation. But what would that conversation look like if we actually made it a reality? What if we looked at it from a standpoint of not trying to guard ourselves or defend ourselves, but we were just honest? Well, I think the conversation would go something more like this. What is my value in life? What do I hold dear? Yeah, I'm a documentarian. Yeah, I make these videos and everything. But what are my values shown in? Well, my values are shown in the way that I spend my time. So if I spend my time watching Netflix and watching everybody else's work, if I spend my time looking at everyone else's gear and everybody else's things that they have, and I spend much less time thinking about the value of, well, this is my art form and this is what I'm trying to express to the world. Well, then when I ask those questions and I answer them very honestly, I'm able to see that my values don't line up as much with what's my art, but it lines up much more with how do I pass this time because I'm afraid to approach my art. See, now I had to identify what was holding me back from obtaining my values. There was something in between me, this thing, and my values. And that thing, a lot of times I would call that fear. A lot of times I would say, oh, I'm scared shitless of doing X, Y, or Z, because if I fail at it, then that makes me a failure. But if I distance myself from it a little bit, then I don't fail because I don't really start, And seems to be illogical when we're talking about this, but I think subconsciously a lot of people do this. I think subconsciously a lot of people think about this and then they say, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and put something between me and my art because I'm afraid of when I express this, what are people gonna say? What are people gonna think? What if I don't even like my expression after I express who I am? And so because of this, I think it's very important to identify and have an honest conversation with yourself as far as what are your values? And then to ask this follow-up question, why haven't you done anything with your values in a really long time? Now, maybe you do something with your values, Maybe you do something with your values, and maybe you really, you're going after them in full force, and that's great, that's wonderful. But the reason I'm making this video is because I don't think a lot of people are doing that. I think that a lot of people are kind of hesitant and reserved and kind of scared of going after this thing that they want or they drastically desire, but they put up this barrier in between themselves and that thing. Now, I mentioned before that, we think it's fear. We think it's, oh, well, what if if I'm not able to get there because I'll fail or something like that. But I think that's a sort of a sexy way to say, because it is kind of a sexy thing to say. And what I mean by that is that, if I say this thing is fear, then I have this thing to combat. I have this thing to fight and to get through, to get to my desire that I want. But we don't end up fighting it. We end up acknowledging that even internally at a subconscious level, that this fear is stopping us from getting there, but then we go off in this other direction because we think it's this fear. I don't think it's fear, though. I think it's a lack of motivation. But how do you get the motivation to do the thing? So we've removed fear and we've said, okay, it's not fear as much as it is a lack of motivation. Because if I'm motivated to do something, I will get past the fear and I'll do it. So the fear becomes irrelevant if I'm motivated. But how do I get motivated? Motivation seems to come from two attributes. And the first one is this ambition. You know, you have to have this drive and this longing to do this certain thing and to obtain this feeling of accomplishment or something like that. And we all have an ambition within ourselves, but that alone, having that ambition, isn't enough to cross that fear threshold. So what else is there? Well, I think it's knowing that you can achieve something. If you know that you can achieve something, if you have the idea that, you know what, I can do this, you know what, this is something, if you're expectant, I guess it would be a good term to be able to put it into. If you can have this expectancy that if I do this work from my ambition, from this thing that's in my soul that's knocking on my front door, my heart, and saying, hey, I gotta express some things, I gotta get some things out into the world. Have you ever noticed that after you do something creative, you feel better? You know, like I have trouble with this all the time with exercise and working out and everything. I tell myself, I won't feel better if I run. I won't, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to go for a run. I don't want to go lift. I don't want to do my pull-ups or sit-ups or anything like that. I don't want to do that because I'm working on this other thing now. And that's just this lack of ambition and this lack of expectancy too. So if I know that I'm gonna feel better after I work out, if I know that, it makes it much easier for me to be able to say, I'll do the work because I know after I do the work, I'll get to this place. And so that's that expectancy. But that ambition is also a very important part too. And if you're trying to force your ambition to drive you towards something else that you don't actually really want, then I think you're going to fall flat on your face. Because at the end of the day, what really matters is being able to know that, okay, this is my true life aspiration. This is what I want to go after. And I think a lot of times we think that, you know, well, if I go after this thing and it's not what I want, then I'm going to find out all of a sudden at some point, oh, I don't want this, and then I'm going to have to go off in a different direction. And we view that as a bad thing, but that's not a bad thing. See, when I moved from Chicago to Los Angeles, or Chicago to Phoenix, then Los Angeles, I had to make this decision, or I had made this decision. And the decision that I made was, I want to work on big movie sets. I want to work on top tier movie sets. I want to work with the best of the best in the big industries and everything. But once I got out there, I realized I don't like this. I don't like not being able to have creative control. I mean, and maybe that means that I'm some control freak that just, you know, wants to be able to have control over what the image looks like and how it feels and how the scene plays out. But if I think about it critically for a second, I can realize that, you know, just because I want to have creative control in my art, that's not a bad thing. You know, that's not something that is something that should be looked down upon. But I think a lot of the ways that people go about being creative and the people go about having this control can sometimes lead to kind of distancing themselves from other people around them when people don't understand that, oh no, this is my art. This is my art, and this is what I want to do with my life. And I have some things I want to express, and the way that I express them is through light and color and the camera operation and all this stuff. Nobody gets mad if a painter says, I have this artistic expression. The only difference is that in a film, generally there's more than one person working on it, whether it be the subject or more of the cast or crew or whatever. There's more than one person usually working on a film. But when did we fall in love with film? See, I fell in love with film when I was working on my own my own projects when I was a kid, when I was like, oh, I'm going to put this little video together and it's going to look horrible and I don't care, but I have creative control over this. I want this to look that way. Okay, cool. Let's make it look that way. And I had so much fun with that. Now, granted, you can make a better film by surrounding yourself with people who can do the jobs that you're trying to do better than you can. There's 7 billion people in the world. And granted, not all of them work in the film industry, but there's a lot of other people in the world who can do and express what you're trying to express if you explain it to them properly. But a lot of times that explanation, it's not always clear. So let's back up for a second. What are we even talking about here? Because I've gone over a bunch of different subjects, and granted they all relate, and that's easy enough to see as we go from topic to topic, but what are we really trying to dig in deep and understand here? What we're trying to understand is, what is this thing that is blocking us from getting to our goal, from getting to our ambition, from getting to this highest aspiration that we have? And like I said, it's this mix of expectancy and ambition. Okay, so how do I get to that place? Well, you have to understand that if you put work into something, just like I was talking about with me going for a run or lifting or whatever else, then you know that you're going to be able to achieve something simply by putting the work into it. So what do I want to summarize now is, what is going to change and shift your life understanding? Well, I think the best way to shift understanding in life is to be able to say, okay, I've tried adding on these other habits. I've tried saying, I'm going to be more diligent. I'm going to be more focused. I'm going to be, I'm going to be more understanding to people around me. I'm going to indoctrinate myself with these other habits. But at the end of the day, if we're adding on other habits, but we're not the different person underneath, then we're just trying to add more stuff on top of ourselves and cover up what actually matters. So when I said that I went to Los Angeles and I wanted to be working on these big film sets, I had broken down this wall of fear, of lack of motivation, of all this other stuff that was there, and gotten through to this thing that was my personal goal in my head. Once I understood that thing that I wanted to go after wasn't really what I wanted, but I wanted to be a traveling cinematographer, I only understood that because I went through and I did the work to get where I wanted to be. You have to accept and be understanding to the fact that you might not get what you really wanted, even if that thing that you wanted, you did the work for, and you got there, and then you might have realized, this isn't really what I wanted to begin with. But that allows you to be able to ask other questions to be able to get to the place where, you do get to what you wanted. I got to the place where, now I am a traveling cinematographer. Now I can go out and I can tell these stories about different people all around the world who, they just have a wisdom and an understanding to them. And I don't have to be limited by a producer or somebody else or a studio or somebody else who says, this is the story we're going to tell and this is how it needs to be told. Granted, I understand that it's not always so black and white, but for somebody who's 28 and trying to, say, oh, I'm gonna tell this cinematic story, there's gonna be roadblocks. If I go the way that obviously works, going through a studio to be able to create a film and be able to tell a story, obviously that works because we have the entire cinema industry. We have movie theaters. We have all these things where people are willing to go out and pay $15-20 a ticket to go see some movie that lasts an hour and a half, and then they walk away and go, that sucked. I'm going to write on Twitter about how that sucked. But that's not the way I want to go. And I talk about it like that, and I view it like that, because for me, that's my understanding of it, and that's how I grasp onto it, and that's not what I want. That's the way that I personally view it. Now, for you, you might say, you know what? I want to go be a traveling cinematographer too. I like that idea. I want to go out and I want to find people who have a wisdom and understanding to be able to share with the world. And I want to put that out into the world, and I want people to be able to understand different ways of living and different ways of being and different ways of thinking too. And then you get out there and you see that and you go through that and you make a couple edits and you say, oh God, this is horrible. I don't like this at all. I do want to go this route. It's different for everybody. It really is. So decide which path you want to go down by the path that you think in your heart of hearts is the one you really want to obtain. But be okay with the fact that you might get there and then realize it's not what you wanted. However, the thing to take away from this is not that you tried to make something work out and it didn't work out. The thing to take away from this is that you've now achieved a higher step in figuring out what your true aspiration really is. It's only with having more experience that we're able to figure out who we really are. It's only by getting ourselves into different scenarios that we figure out how would we really act in that scenario. You know, a lot of people think that, something happens, like somebody gets in a car accident or something, and I will be the person to rush over and to see if that person's okay. I will be the person to get out of my car before the paramedics get there and go check something out. If I see somebody being attacked or something like that, then I will step in there and I will be. We think that a lot, but most of the world's reactions is paralysis, and that's by not making these decisions or by thinking that, oh, you know what? I'm going to react the same way Liam Neeson reacted when his daughter was taken, you know, in the movie Taken, right? So if we think that we're going to react a certain way in a different scenario, but then we get to that scenario and we find out that, oh, I reacted with paralysis. I reacted with fear. I reacted with just stepping away and pushing somebody else forward or something like that. It's not a bad thing, because what we've come to understand from that scenario is that, oh my God, this is how I react in this scenario? Okay, well, I don't want to react that way in that scenario anymore. So what do I have to do in order to make sure that I can react a different way from now on and not be the person who has paralysis? This is the same exact approach, and this is why I explained it this way. It's more easy for people to understand, for everybody to understand, and it's how I came to understand it too. But if we can understand that, oh, I learn more about myself from putting myself in different situations, then we can also understand that, okay, well, if I thought that about myself and it wasn't true, then what other things am I thinking about myself that might not be true? Is it possible that I think that I want to be this marketer for a magazine or a marketer for a certain movie company or studio or something like that, but that's not really what I want to do. What I really want to do is write about films. Oh, you know what? Okay, that's actually not what I want to do either, because all I'm doing is I'm just writing about other people's artwork. So what do I really want to do? Well, I guess I could try making film. Going through this process and having different experiences to expand your understanding of who you are, that's life. That's what life is. And by shifting our understanding of who we are, we can shift our values. It's an easy thing to talk about. It's a harder thing to implement. So today I would recommend that you find a way to figure out more about who you personally truly are and how you would react in different scenarios, or what your highest ambition would be. Now, I can't say for certain what that would exactly mean for you, but I can say that a good place to start is chasing down the thing that you think you actually want, and chasing it down with a ferocity, okay? I believe that we as human beings are predators. We're some of the smartest in the world. We are the smartest predators in the world. I mean, we invented light bulbs, we invented computers, we invented microphones and all this other stuff, and cameras and buildings, and we formed a currency, and we've done all these things that have kind of furthered our society to the point at which where it is now. What does that make us? Does that make us just like an alligator or just like a flamingo? I don't know where a flamingo came from, but whatever. No, it doesn't really make us that. It makes us smarter and a little bit higher of a understanding of the world and how it works. Granted, we have missed out on a lot of the basics. We have missed out a lot on the fact that, you know what, this person believes something, this person believes something else, and I believe something else, and I hate these two types of people because of what goes on in their brain and the experiences that have shaped their lives to make them think the way they're thinking. That's not a good thing, and animals don't do that. But what my point is that we are, when you think about something like a Bengal tiger or a cougar or a lion or a wolf or something like that, you associate those things with a vitality, with when a wolf goes out on a hunt to go bring down a bear or a bison or whatever else, they don't just go about it going, oh, I guess we're gonna go bring down bison today. You know, they are strategic, and they are, you know, they think about it. And their brains work, and they work together with their pack to make something happen. They have a ferocity to them, and they are predators, and they are to be respected absolutely. I mean, everyone's seen the videos of, you know, when people get too close to an animal cage, what happens? You know, our stupidity increases, and we think that, oh, just because there's some bars here, I no longer have to be afraid of this animal. I saw, you know, what was his name? Tony the Tiger, and now I think that, you know, all the tigers are like, great, and all this type of shit. We've stepped out of the jungle, and in doing so, we've kind of forgotten that there needs to be a respect for the way that things are and the way that animals behave and the fact that we can learn something from them too. Predators now means something dirty and disgusting and vile and people who should be buried. I don't know, just strap some C4 to them and blow them up after they've been executed, because those predators are not the predators I'm talking about. The wolves, the lions, the bears, the dominating predators in their habitat, those are the predators I'm talking about. And have you seen the way that they move? Have you seen the way that they act and they interact? They don't let this thing, this weird, whatever this thing is, stop them from getting to the thing that they achieve. If you watch any documentaries like Planet Earth or Blue Planet or Life or anything like that, where you watch these animals, it doesn't matter if it's an ant, it doesn't matter if it's a polar bear. They will try until their dying breath to make sure that they can accomplish the thing that they want to accomplish. And that doesn't matter if it's going after some walruses, if it doesn't matter if it's, you know, building this hive, it doesn't matter what it is. They get something in their mind and they understand, I have to do this thing to get to this place. And they go after it and they don't even question it. They don't even question, well, can I? Well, should I? Well, what are people going to think? No, they don't give a shit about what other ants think. They don't give a damn about, you know, oh, well, this other polar bear is going to think that, you know, I'm kind of crazy for going out after this walrus or something. They don't care about that. The only thing they care about is accomplishing the thing that the task that they have to complete. And that's for food, that's for survival. But what can we take away from that? We can take away from that the fact that, okay, if we are the top of the food chain, given a circumstance, if we're not being, you know, taken on by like some crazy megalodon shark or something like that, if we know we're at the top of the food chain, then we should act like it. We should not be acting like we're at the bottom below ants that don't question what they have to do in order to accomplish their task. They just do it. So act like the predator that you are. Walk like the predator that you are. Explain yourself and talk about your situation like the predator that you are. You know, there are people in the world you can't take your eyes off of. There are people in the world who act with, you know, they have this posture about them. It's not this alpha male thing that I'm talking about. That is so far off from my point to begin with. I mean, even in the wolf pack, the female hunts. The female lion, the lioness, she protects, you know, she hunts, she does the work. Women, I just gotta say, step up your game. because you can have a confidence and you can have a power about you that can make men shudder. And you need to use that. You need to know that you're a predator and you're somebody who can decide that this is a task I need to achieve. I'm gonna break through whatever this is like it's not even there, and I'm gonna go get that thing. Change the values in your life. Change the ways that you perceive yourself. Whether you're viewing yourself as, oh, well, I'm not very attractive, or, oh, well, I'm not very good at doing this or that thing, so I can't achieve that. No. Those mental barriers that are between you and the thing you want to do, get rid of them. Tear them down, blast through them, do whatever you have to do, because if you can set up an ambition or understand the ambition within your heart, within your soul, and then you can have some expectancy to know that you can accomplish this thing and have an idea of either one, this is really the thing that I want, or two, this didn't turn out to be the thing that I wanted, but now I have a better understanding of where to go from this place. That's an expectancy. You can obtain that. You can achieve that, and you can move through whatever barriers you have. But you have to start changing your values and the way that you view yourself. If you view yourself as this lowly whatever person who, gets taken down by anything and everything that blows their way, you're not going to get there. You have to shift this value in your life and understand that you are a predator. You are somebody who can accomplish whatever they want to set their mind to. What constantly blows my mind is this idea that people have that, well, I have belief in this higher power. I have belief in the universe. I have belief in God, and they are going to help shape my life and, put me into the person I've become. That's no problem. I have my beliefs too. But what strikes me as insanity is the fact that you don't have belief in yourself. There are people walking around with their heads up in the clouds and just thinking, well, whatever happens is going to happen, and I guess I just have to be okay with that. And they don't have this understanding or belief in themselves to say, I can change something. I can do something. And that I believe that God, the universe, or just happenstance, whatever it is, I am biologically created to be this predator that can dominate whatever I decide to go after. I have one of the best brains in the world if you're looking at, humans versus all other forms of life. Now, like I said before, granted, there are things that I think we could go back to the basics and learn from the animals. Things like wars over who did what to hurt who or whatever, or beliefs in religion or whatever. Animals don't do that. That's a made up thing by humans, because we've got a brain that's so good we can't even keep it in check a lot of the times. But if you go ahead and you take control of that, if you go ahead and you say, okay, I'm going to use this thing in between my ears as a force for good in the world. And I'm going to take what God, the universe, or happenstance gave me, and I am going to turn that into something as a force for good in the world. And how do I do that? I get where I want to go. I have to be able to achieve this thing that I want in life, because you know what? I'm praying for this. I'm hoping for this. I'm trying to get in the flow of whatever, and I'm not making any actions. You have to understand that you have the ability to make all the actions in the world. You have the ability to cause harm to others, and at the same time, you have the ability to support others. You have the ability to lie. You have the ability to tell the truth. You have the ability to create something beautiful, and you have the ability to be able to create something dark and heavy and horrible. You have the ability to make all of these choices. So how are you spending your time on this planet in making those choices? Are you acting like the predator that you are? Or are you just deciding to say, you know what? Whatever happens, happens, and I'll pray for it, or I'll hope for it, or I'll get in the flow, and maybe that'll work. But whatever happens, happens. And that's just who I am, and I'm just going to move on as a shell from one person to the... You're missing out on the gift of life. You're missing out on the gift that you've received this body and this brain and this ability with thumbs. We have thumbs. Are you kidding me? We have the ability to be able to pick things up. We have the ability to turn them around in our fingers. We have the ability to do all this stuff that, most animals don't have the ability to be able to do. At least not as coordinated as we are. But how do we spend that? How do we take our time to be able to appreciate those things? We piss away our time. We waste our time watching Netflix or watching everybody else's work, and we view that as something that's okay because we're still entertained. Meanwhile, we're not going out and accomplishing the things that we want and desire in our lives. You gotta get off YouTube, you gotta get off Facebook, you gotta get off these other time-wasting platforms and focus yourself on being able to achieve that goal. If you do that, you are going to go light speed ahead of where everybody else is at, because most people in the world are content just to be comfortable. And if you're not content with just being comfortable, then you have a chance to win. And when I say you have a chance to win, I mean that you have a chance to win at life. And what I mean by having a chance to win at life is you can find your highest ambition and your highest aspiration, and you can go after it, and you can grab it, and you can take it by the neck, and you can say, this is what I wanted, and now I got it. And then you can own that. You can know that I set out to accomplish something, and I did it. That expectancy is part of the reason that you have the motivation. The ambition, knowing that thing within yourself, is the other part of this equation. You add those two things together, you're gonna get what you want. And that's really all there is to it. I hope that you go after the thing that you want. I hope that you stop trying to change, going on the internet and listening to these people in the Huffington Post saying 6 ways to change your motivation, 6 ways to be able to, accomplish your dream goal or grab your dream job. But also, here are the 6 ways that people don't achieve what they want to achieve. Stop wasting time with that. You have biologically everything inside of you that you need to be able to accomplish the goal that you want. So act like it. Go get what you want.